Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novy-Williams, and this is the That's So Fast sports business podcast, the Sporticast.
I don't love it. I know we just decided and you only had a minute to think about it, but That's So Fast, almost eclipsing the 2-hour marathon. Almost.
Getting closer.
Getting closer. I mean, it's, as you and I have discussed, it's happened before, but not in like certified events. So we're getting there, but I don't know. Eben, I like the technological innovation that I see, what I see every day. I see these 12, 13, 14-year-old hockey players with slap shots that are ridiculous. But I know it's the equipment. Like when I played, it was this solid piece of wood, Sherwood thing, and it just wasn't like that. I don't know. You tell me. You're the runner. You run through trails. You do all this ultra distance stuff. You have a good appreciation for this. Is this sort of? I'm going to give you the generic, and you tell me exactly what it is. But this carbon fiber, forward-leaning, propelling sneaker. I don't know. Like, to me, it just seems to absolutely wash away what everybody else has already done.
Yeah, so we're talking here about Kenyan Kelvin Kiptum, who set the marathon world record in a race this week in Chicago, 2 hours and 35 seconds, which is so fast. Scott, I want to reiterate that. 4 minutes and
4 minutes a mile.
Seconds
it's insanity. It's insanity. Not that, by the way, 5 minutes to me is an insanity.
Yeah.
6 minutes to me is insanity. So this is really out there.
It's wild. And he did so wearing the Nike Alpha Fly 3, the newest iteration of the shoes that you're talking about. Distance running has been taken over in the past 5 years by this new class of running shoe. It's a mix of new types of foam, the biggest innovation being the carbon fiber plate that is in there, Scott, which, as you said, it transfers energy really well as you lean forward. It keeps the sole stiffer, which it's the reason why marathon times are going down significantly. Almost every big running shoe company is making them now. It's not just Nike. Brooks, Adidas, all the big running, Skechers, I believe, all the big running shoes are making some sort of a shoe in this mold. But I think your comparison to hockey is right. It's like F1, right? F1 is a technological thing, and it's.
See, but that's why I say NASCAR. Everybody drives the same car, right? That's the interesting part. Like that's the bigger discussion here. Do you want everybody in the same shoe, and then you have to go run? That to me is a question of, is that where we need to go with this sport?
Yeah, the danger there being that different runners have different styles and therefore want a different shoe to fit their style, right? I think from a health perspective, it's a little different. But as shoes became the marketing and business force for athletes within running, and then the fact that it is just like an F1 car, the technology that goes into these shoes is so intense. It's years of research, et cetera. We are definitely entering a phase now where running, in addition to being, in some ways you can argue, maybe the most pure of the Olympic sports, it is also very much a technological thing.
You know me, I don't like to run that far, very far at all. But, there's a reason why, he ran a marathon way back when, because he had to, right?
Yep.
We have engines now, 26 miles, use the engine. I'm okay with that. Is this going to be a consumer battle? Like how do you win this race for the consumer? I mean, is it somebody wins one, but then in a different shoe wins the next marathon, or how do you win this race? You tell me, because you go sneaker shopping. You tell me.
It's funny. The original version of this shoe, the original Alpha Fly, which was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I remember the first going to a race at one point. They were all neon orange. And you could see like half the field was suddenly wearing these shoes. They were like $300, which is obviously really expensive. So in some ways, it's already happening I bet you if you were to watch the amateur runners at the New York Marathon in a month or so, you're going to see a ton of these shoes. They're really expensive. They wear out fairly quickly.
Let's call our sister brand Footwear News. I want to know how these things are selling.
We can see they're selling very well because they do make you faster. I don't know if you've ever run in one, Scott, but if you put them on, it takes some getting used to. You almost feel like you're in like a rocking chair moving.
If anybody ever says Soshnick is running quickly, that would take some getting used to, because that has not happened.
Yeah, I think the challenge for all these other companies is to break through the clutter, because everyone associates these shoes with Nike because Nike was doing it first. How do you break through to make it clear that your shoes are just as good or better, however you want to couch it. I think that's a challenge. One other thing that I think is an interesting topic here, Scott, the sub 2 hour marathon, which a lot of people thought was impossible, is going to happen in a competition. It seems like at some point. This Kelvin Kiptoom's time took, if I'm doing the math right, 32 seconds off of the previous world record.
Which for people who do not run, you have to understand what taking 32 seconds off the world record marathon
huge.
is an eternity. Exactly.
It's huge. It doesn't seem crazy to think that at some point in the next few years, someone could run this in 1 hour, 59 minutes and 59 seconds.
Whoa. So you're just saying another 40-something seconds off?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm thinking
seconds.
Ideal conditions, right track. I'm thinking how low can it go?
Well, part of this is the shoes, Scott. How much more efficient are the shoes going to be? But Nike has spent, for folks who follow running, spent tens of millions of dollars, maybe even more, in the past 5 years on their Breaking 2 project. It was a very glitzy, kind of camera-ready attempt for Eliud Kipchoge to break this record. He did, and you mentioned it at the beginning. He ran a sub 2 hour marathon. It was on an F1 track. There was a pace car in front of him. There was a phalanx of pacers around him.
Phalanx.
It is not the kind of run that gets you in the actual record books. But he did at least complete the distance in that time. And I think this totally detracts from whoever the first person that actually does this in person is, right? If you think back to the 50s and Roger Bannister, the amount of attention he got for breaking the 4-minute mark in the mile, it was a huge story. And I think because Nike has kind of already done this in a very contrived, marketing-heavy way.
But that's going to still ring true. They're going to say, wait, didn't someone do this already? Like that's going to be bouncing around the medulla oblongata.
So I think what an amazing accomplishment it's going to be for whoever in a major marathon breaks that 2 hour mark. I think in some ways people are going to be like, I thought this happened already in Italy 3 or 4 years ago. I think in some ways Nike has kind of stolen and intentionally, I think, stolen a lot of the attention from that really impressive mark by essentially creating the perfect, both the shoes and everything around Iliad, creating the perfect scenario for that to happen.
Hunter, can I ask you a shoe question?
Yeah.
As you know, I don't rarely go for the the premium stuff. Mm-hmm. But I did buy the On shoe, the Roger Federer shoe. This is my shoe. I bought that one right there. You see it all the time.
You took it off.
Yeah. Well, why not? Yeah, why not? I can do it. I took it off. But that's it right there.
No free
It's developed a little bit of a squeak.
In those pods at the bottom?
Yes. Yes. So where do we stand on the go back to the store and say, love the shoes, comfortable, all this, but they've developed a little bit of a squeak, which I don't love, everywhere I'm going. With every step. No good. No bueno.
This is the benefit of buying it from a store. I think you'd have much more luck than you would trying to return them to some e-commerce site.
For sure. I could walk into the store. I could run in.
I'd be curious to read the reviews on that shoe if it's because these On shoes, I believe, have these kind of circular pods on the bottom. Yeah, I can't imagine they get.
I'll show. Let's go. Right here.
Yeah,
there they are.
Yeah, exactly.
And by the way, they mush very easily. I was doing something in the driveway the other day, and it really mushed over, and I kind of almost went over, turned the ankle kind of deal.
Okay, I can't. This sounds
straight
like
away run.
Maybe not a good review for Scott's On shoes.
This is not the shoe you want for if you're chased. What do they say? If you're chased by an alligator, run serpentine. These would be bad shoes. I could see me going over, spraining the ankle, down I go, and get eaten.
Well, thankfully, I can't imagine running from an alligator is in your future anytime soon.
Excuse me, you were with me down in South Carolina for one of our events.
That's true.
And there were alligators on the property out of the little ponds where we had to put the light on before we got out of the car to go look because it's conceivable that they could have been right there in the driveway. So
new shoes for South Carolina this year.
That's right. All right. By the way, you and I, speaking of being together, we were together late on Friday night because the world does not stop for breaking news. The NWSL has reached agreements on its new media deals. 4-year deals, so I'll let you touch on the timing because that is interesting as well. Also 4 new partners. So let me see, I have to have my fingers up counting when we do it. It's Scripps, Amazon, CBS, and ESPN. A lot of reaction to it, by the way, when it went out even late. But a lot of it's going, oh no, am I going to need multiple subscriptions? Do I have to have different services? If so, I don't want that. It's not good. I can understand why the NWSL was not ready to take a MLS Apple approach, one place. I get it because they need the scale. So There is that on your CBS and ESPN, and Scripps is home of Ion, which has the WNBA. So tell me what you think on sort of the partners. I mean, the money, by the way, we didn't nail down the exact figure, but they're getting like $1.5 million a year now. We heard a big deal. Now, we don't know exactly what big. What do you get, 20 to 30 million a year?
Yeah, I think my guess would be the low end of that range.
Okay, 20-something million dollars a year, up from 1.5. So good. That would keep some owners happy, I would guess. Not all, but some. Now, here's the important part. 4-year deal, which takes it through what, Mr. Novy-Williams?
Yeah, it takes you through the 2027 World Cup, which, just like this year, they were able to negotiate these deals on the heels of the Women's World Cup. Every Women's World Cup seems to set huge records in terms of commercial money, in terms of viewership. It's getting more attention. All those things are really great. The U.S. team did not do so well in this Women's World Cup.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Which I think affects
this was the older players, though.
Quite a big amount.
Yeah. Now you're going to get another World Cup where people are really going to learn who some of these younger players are.
These deals seem very much geared for NWSL, that is going through massive commercial growth already, to have 4 more years of that growth and maybe have the U.S. women's team do really well in the World Cup in 2027. And suddenly you hit the market at that moment where both your league and the national attention around women's soccer is at all-time highs. That I think is the goal. Going back to the TV deals, there's obviously a lot of details here that we don't have, and I think that's where we're going to learn a lot of this. It's not like these 4 companies are going to split up 25% of these games each, right? So I think for folks who are worried about, do I need 4 services? We're going to see. It's unclear how much
to watch every game, maybe.
Maybe, right. Yeah. How much exclusivity does Amazon get? Do they get any? And then within a lot of these other companies, Scripps has Ion, as you said, national TV brand, and they have a lot of local coverage, right? So is that a local thing? Is it a national Ion thing? Is it a little bit of both? CBS has CBS and CBS Sportsnet, right? This is the NWSL's partner right now. Games on CBS are amazing. Everybody loves them. They get great viewership. Games on CBS Sportsnet, a little bit less so, right? So what's the breakdown there for CBS? ESPN, same thing. ESPN Plus, there's ESPN The Mothership. What are those breakouts going to be? What's exclusive and where? We're going to find out, I think, in the next month or so, Scott, as these deals get finalized, as they get ready to announce them, what that looks like. But the whole thing we've heard, we talked about this on the show last week as well. Everything we've heard from NWSL is reach is important to them. It's the thing that the MLS deal does not have, as convenient as it may be to have everything in one place. I cannot imagine a world in which NWSL is cutting these 4 deals knowing that it's going to be harder to watch them. I think the goal of doing this is that it's easier to watch in more places.
Yes.
And for that, I would caution anyone who sees this news and thinks, oh man, now it's going to be broken up and I'm not going to know where to find things. I would imagine that NWSL is trying to actually solve for the opposite problem with these deals.
I got a text message from an owner, investor, whatever you want to call it, in what would comfortably be called a niche sport.
Okay.
One which gets similar eyeballs to the NWSL, and all it was is, you can bet my folks are watching, because when on the mothership, as you said, the difference between CBS Sports Network and CBS proper, when this niche sport is on the mothership of a particular, I don't want to get too specific and say which it is, because people can then really drill down and maybe get what I'm talking about here, so I'll be very vague. In essence, though, it was like, hey, we get those numbers. We can attract that many eyeballs. Are we going to get, is this really? Oh, it was like, what's the number? What's the number? That's all he wanted to know. What's the number? It's a good question, because you and I have talked about, where's the money coming from? The NBA still to come. Obviously a tier 1 sports property. The NFL is the NFL. That's tier 1A. That's in its own little stratosphere. But what else is going to get paid? That's the big question. As we said, I think the NWSL here, you're saying big number, up X whatever. But I think there's still probably some owners who were like, maybe we should have done a shorter deal, or maybe we could have gotten a little more money, or maybe. I'm sure there were some who said within the walls of the NWSL who said, you know what, let's go longer.
Yeah.
Let's take the stability and bird in the hand. Interesting in that really different approaches within the league and what works for each individual team.
One thing the NWSL did in this process that maybe is worth passing on to whoever that is that texted you, they brought their big advertising and sponsorship partners into these discussions to a degree. So companies like Allied and CarMax were making it clear to all of these potential media partners, we are going to spend on your airwaves when you have these games. And I think that I think was a smart move to let these media companies hear, okay, if we buy this and we pay this, the question is, how do we monetize it? Well, we have some big partners in the league right now who are telling us we are going to buy advertising space on your games to promote this. So I think that was smart for the NWSL. The other thing I'll say is just like we've talked about with MLS for so long, so much of the investment, the corporate sponsorship, and I would argue even the media rights deals in NWSL are trying to read the tea leaves of what is to come, not what the commercial value is currently right now. So I would bet that a lot of the value built into these TV deals is expectation about what viewership looks like in 2026 and 2025, and not necessarily 2023 and 2024.
Remember Sesame Street, where you'd say a word and like one would come from one part of the screen and the other, and like the word is whatever. If somebody came to me and said, "Look, these are our partners, are involved in talks. They're saying they're going to spend on your network, and when I'm drawing up my contract and I make my offer, here's the word of the day: Novy-Williams contingent." That's it. That'd be my word of the day. Okay, well then my offer is contingent on that deal and those deals getting signed with my networks. Yep. That's just because they're here and they're talking, that doesn't mean anything until I get some checks. So.
And this has been we've said it. It's a tough time right now to be in the market. If you're not the NBA, I think it's a tough time to be out there looking for a media deal. And for NWSL to come out of this with a number, if we're right, something north of $20 million a year, again, up from, you can argue, from a negative number, because the league is currently
paying
responsible for production costs that far exceed the $1.5 million they get per year from CBS. For them to come out of this with a 20-plus number is a, financially at least, on its face, a big success.
All right, so when you say if you're not the NBA, whatever, so what do you mean for the WNBA? I would say they are one and the same, because it only stands to reason that with the NBA having a stake in the league, unlike the NWSL, the men's league has this huge stake, about half of WNBA ownership. It would seem to me, I go to market, I'm like, okay, we're negotiating TV deals, but we're negotiating the NBA and the WNBA at the same time.
Yeah, I don't want to compare the two, because the only thing they have in common is that they're women's sports. But the WNBA, the NWSL is eclipsing very quickly, I think, the value of the WNBA and its rights, right? The 2 years ago, it would have been crazy to think that NWSL teams would be on par valuation-wise with W teams, but they are, and they've eclipsed in some ways. The thing the W has going with it, obviously, is its partnership with the NFL. There's a lot of shared ownership groups. There's a lot of synergies there. They're hitting the market together. NBA, sorry, in a lot of ways, and that is extremely valuable. But in some kind of commercial ranking of the major U.S. women's pro leagues, I think right now you'd be crazy not to think that the NWSL has not already eclipsed the WNBA, or is not about to at some point in the coming years.
Did you watch anything on Liberty Aces? Any of it?
I didn't know, but I'm going to watch it at some point for sure. I mean, this is it's a dream matchup. It's so many of the big names that even casual fans would probably recognize, from Ionescu and Stewart.
Can't wait to add Caitlin Clark,
Asia Wilson,
Paige Beckers.
It's I think this is a big moment for the WNBA.
Angel
for sure.
Reese,
having a lot of momentum in the college game, as you're saying, having the first two really mega super teams of the modern era in WNBA playing against each other. I think this is a very big deal, and it'll be interesting to see what happens coming out of that with its media talks.
What am I to make now of Tom Brady? We understand that he was in talks to acquire a minority piece of the Las Vegas Raiders. Now we're hearing, who the Washington Post reported? Was that, I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, it was Washington Post first saying the deal has hit a snag because other owners in the NFL are not happy with the number that Tom will be paying, saying he's getting way too good a deal. That does not bode well for them should they go to sell their team or pieces. I'm not so sure that's really true. And if Mark Davis wants to give an insider's price or deal to somebody, it'll be interesting to see if the others can prevent it. Mr. Mike McCann wrote about that today, as a matter of fact, saying they could bring up some antitrust issues. But just your thoughts on, you and I were debating, we were more talking about what's the real value of Tom Brady as a limited partner in the Las Vegas Raiders? Is he worth giving a huge discount to? Will there be ROI on the back end?
So I'll do some quick math here real quick. We valued the Raiders at $5.77 billion. According to the Post, Brady was looking to buy up to 10% of it and was getting a 70% discount on the actual
$500 million would be $570 million.
$175 million is roughly in there for a 10% stake if those numbers are all right.
Right.
Which is a lot of money. It's not inconceivable to think that Tom has that money. But yeah, I think this is the interest, or one of the interesting questions.
How would you? Let me ask you. You're Mark Davis. What's the first thing, Tom? I'm going to need you to do X, Y, Z. How are you utilizing Tom Brady to make this worth your while?
Is he on TV? I mean, is he doing the Fox thing? Because if he is, I think there's opportunities there. Perhaps the big thing you want Tom Brady just continuing to interact with this, showing up at games, maybe wearing jerseys, doing stuff on his social media. That, I think, is the main thing that someone like Tom Brady brings. He has a huge following. He has a huge football following of people that are not Raiders fans. Can he do anything to help kind of port that over? I think that's the big question. Getting a 70% discount on this is hundreds of millions of dollars here, Scott. And the thing that's not lost on me is we just got that news that FTX was paying Tom and his wife $60 million over 3 years to spend 60 hours of their time, 3 days over 3 years. Was paying him $60 million to do that. So
now you and I were saying, though, this is a consumer play where there's other people sign up for something they don't know anything about, and this will bring at least name recognition. Everybody knows the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, if you think about in the modern economy where influencers and athletes and stars are,
Messi's getting $500,000 for every Saudi Arabia post, right?
Yeah,
he goes on vacation,
so what is it worth to the Raiders to give him a $300 million or $400 million discount on a stake? I don't know. I'm not saying either of these is smart, but I do think that the way that former athletes of his caliber, a list from a name recognition and facial recognition standpoint, the way they get compensated if they want to do things that promote other brands or sports teams is pretty crazy. And
Tom Brady's face on the Sphere for a week.
Totally. Yeah, there's a lot. It's Vegas, right? There's a lot that he could do. A question I have for you, going back to the NFL part of this, the joke I thought of when I first heard this news was that, like, this sounds like my co-op board, right? Which sometimes tells people, like, oh, you can't sell for that price. Like, that's too low.
Yep.
But our co-op is a single entity structure, right? And there are leagues that are single entities. The NFL is not one of them.
Not one of them.
I am kind of surprised here. I understand why, if I'm an owner of another team, I'm like, Mark, like, why are you doing it? Like, that just sets a bad precedent for everybody. But I am surprised that there is authority, and this is exactly what Mike McCann went into in his column. But I am surprised, and I'm curious your thoughts. Surprised there's authority here that can tell Mark, you can't do that.
I'm not surprised. Now, if you know anything about the owners, you know that they have their rules. They have their rules, just like the 30% liquid part, for the control owner. They have rules. The beauty is they can always change the rules. If they realize that, hey, they want to do something else, fine, sure. They can change them. But I am not surprised at all that there's some sort of central rule book that would govern such a thing. And they say, no, that's not big enough for all of us. We get it. We get to say we improve transactions, and we're not okay with this.
Do you think that this would be treated the same way if it was not Tom Brady, but if it was insert rich hedge fund capital, whatever it is?
I do. I just think it's the number. Yeah, I think it's totally number driven.
So you don't think it has anything to do with potential conflicts of broadcaster or an athlete who could come back and play theoretically in a year?
I think you hit it. No, I think you hit it on the head. It's precedent, and come on, Tom Brady coming back and playing. But no, I think you hit it on the head. It's just precedent. They don't want that sort of low number hung on this. So can I steal a line from you? Somewhere Yo Gotti is like, "What are you kidding me?"
Exactly.
That was your number.
To get a discount on
wait a minute. Did I?
LP stake?
He's what was he? DC United? Is that what Yo Gotti bought into? DC United,
800 plus valuation.
Yeah. He's like, whoa. He's calling back. He's like, wait, Jason Levian, how about 80 million valuation? What's happening here? I went the wrong way.
Yeah, we're in this. Everyone talks about the LP discount, right? Which is Tom Brady is getting that in a more extreme version. It seems like than anything we see before. But if the valuation of a team is X and you want to buy 15 or 10% of it, it seems like you typically get a discount off of X. What we've seen in MLS, and I think we're going to see this more in other leagues, is that the super LP is not a discount. It's a markup.
Yeah.
Yo Gotti paid the LLP, the Super LP markup, right? So you get the markup if you're willing to buy 0.5%.
Yes.
You get the discount if you want to buy 15%, and then you get the value of the thing if you want to buy the controlling stake. That seems like the weird bell curve that we're in right now in sports team ownership.
Well, I told you about the pizza place opposite the hockey rink where the focus group of one practices twice a week. I go in, and the garlic knots, it's so funny. The big sign says garlic knots, $1 each. And then it said $6 for 6.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't think you guys know how this is supposed to go.
Yeah.
Like that's not how this works. I wonder how many people take the
but it's
6.
$4.50 for 4.
Yeah, it really bizarre. I'm like, and I started to bring it up, and they were like, oh, whatever. I let it go, though. It wasn't easy for me. All right, Olympics. We got a couple of things to do, and we don't have that much time.
Yeah.
Olympics. All right, so what do we got in? Cricket, flag football, baseball, softball, lacrosse, squash. So what was all this debate about? Like, they're all in. We got everything.
It's pretty wild. Yeah, the LA28 announced right as we were recording this that they are recommending those 6 sports to be added to the Olympic program for LA28. The IOC will, barring anything shocking, will approve this in Mumbai later this month. It's a surprise because for a long time there was written in a cap on the amount of athletes that could be at the Olympics. And if LA28 and Casey Wasserman wanted to add sports, the thinking was they needed to eliminate sports. For every 300 baseball athletes you want to bring to the village, you got to carve 300
cap
athletes
is a cap.
out.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems like that cap in recent months disappeared. It no longer became a concern. LA28, I'm sure, is looking at this from a business decision. They believe that adding softball and baseball, you're selling a bunch of tickets. They're big rosters, but again, the cap isn't.
I'm trying to think. I went to the baseball, and when I went to the Olympics in Beijing, I remember going to the baseball venue. Like, was it really? I really don't remember if it was that crowded. It didn't stick out to me as like one of the more popular sports. I could be wrong. I just don't remember.
That's baseball in China and not baseball in LA, which I do think is a little bit different. The things that jump out to me here.
Not if Clayton Kershaw's pitching. Sorry, it was too easy. It was too easy. Sorry, Stan Kasten.
It's a big win for the NFL. Push to get flag football in there succeeded. This is, again, a sport that is not played in flag or in tackle pretty much anywhere outside the U.S. with any real consistency. Will this help that? It can't hurt. So that's a big win.
We'll take the cricket money, though.
100%. The cricket is a financial thing. It's a global sport. The IOC will be able to upsell its rights in India by an insane amount. The Indian TV rights right now, Scott, $12 million for 4 years. They pay $12 million to broadcast the Olympics in India. When cricket is in the Olympics, that number will increase significantly.
We're going to talk about NWSL numbers here.
Yeah, we're going to blow that out of the water. So that's an interesting one. I think for baseball, there was concern for baseball that softball had. There was a smaller rosters and there was a push behind women's sports that was going to help softball and not baseball. Getting it together is great. Lacrosse, Paul Rabel and what they're doing at the PLL, getting lacrosse.
Josai,
huge deal for them also. So we saw this with rugby 8 years ago now. Getting a sport in the Olympics does a lot for awareness, for participation, for the way that other countries' growth areas think about your sport. So if it is true, there's a big win for a lot of people here.
All right, I want to go back to Vegas for a moment to talk about the championship rings that the Knights put out. And you have a story because, I mean, it's always been a joke that these rings are gargantuan and very rarely does anybody wear the championship ring as a professional athlete. It's just too big, too bulky, too heavy.
Insane.
It's almost impossible. So it sits in a closet if you have to get together for a very fancy, whatever function it may be. I mean, the rarest of the rare, you pull that thing out. But I think the teams are starting to catch on to that. And they're giving alternative ways to utilize what is a ring, but can also be a different component. And we saw this on display with the Rams at the Variety and Sportico Entertainment Summit. And I'm guessing this is going to catch on, having seen now what the Knights were offering. I mean, you open the ring and there's the rink. I'm like, wait a minute. What is this? How can you better utilize this?
The Rams ring from a couple of years ago, Super Bowl ring, same as the Knights. The top pops off.
Yep.
You see the field underneath in the stands. They're incredibly valuable. They are so big, Scott. They're even for you and I would be. It
would fit on 2 or 3 fingers. Exactly. It's insane. It's like brass knuckle thing. Yeah.
The Rams CMO, Kat Kyling Frederick, was on a panel that I was on, and she showed up with it around her neck. So she had a metal chain, and then the ring was hanging on as a pendant, essentially on the neck, which I'd never seen before.
It was like the face of the ring.
Genius. So when I told her, I was like, yeah, look, this is the top pops off. Yeah, it's like a pendant. And the team is now selling. I don't know if this is directly because of her, but if you go to the Ram shop, you can buy the front of the ring as a pendant on a necklace. I think you're going to see more of that. I think
yeah, me too.
As the rings get bigger and bigger and they become even more unwearable in public settings for anyone who is not a 380-pound Aaron Donald-sized linebacker, I think the idea of creating opportunities either around the neck or as pendants that pop off, ways in which your staffers who win these things, and it's really important for people who win them who are not athletes, they're very proud of that. I think having other ways to showcase that is really important.
I'm going to use an NFT term. I have a great idea though for the one-of-one ring, for that person, the biggest fan who plenty of disposable income, a one-of-one. The ring is so big, you pop it off and a cornerback comes out. I knew you. It was so bad, but so good. You didn't know where it was going, but you wanted to hate what I just said, but you actually like it. I can read your mind. You want to hate yourself for liking that joke. You want to hate yourself, but you love it. Go ahead and close.
These are the free ideas that you get on the Sporticast every Tuesday.
Go ahead. Any team, feel free to take it. Put your cornerback in there.
Solicit those for Scott on Twitter at Soshnick. I am Eben Novy-Williams on Twitter at Novy_Williams. The show is produced by Aaron Greenewald. Thank you to Aaron. Sportico's digital media editor Cora Veltman would like you to know that you can download the show and follow it at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.